Loss comes in many forms, and usually in unexpected ways. It can be devastating, leaving you facing an uphill struggle to go on with life without someone you thought would always be there. But life does go on, and even in the deepest despair, we can find hope. Welcome to Grief Relief with your hosts, Drs. Gloria and Heidi Horsley, brought to you by the Open to Hope Foundation, helping people find hope after loss. And now here's Dr. Gloria and Dr. Heidi.
Welcome to the show today. I'm Dr. Gloria Horsley, and my co-host, Dr. Heidi Horsley. We have an illness in the family, and her little son's sick, and we hope that he'll be doing well. I think many of you don't know that Heidi flies in to California from New York in order to co-host the show with me, so she wasn't able to come at this time. So our prayers go out to our little Alexander, and we hope that all of you out there will be praying for him too, to get better. So today, a good friend of mine and a colleague, Alan Peterson, has agreed to co-host the show with me today. Alan, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Well, I'm so honored to be here too. You know, a couple of weeks ago I was in New York visiting Heidi, and but I'm glad I could step in for her today. Now, I don't plan to be, you know, quite as sharp as she is, but I'll do the very best I can, I promise you. And today's a tough subject, so I'll do my best. That's all I can say.
Thanks, Alan. And it is a tough subject. We're going to be talking about murder. And I know that's a really tough subject for everybody to talk about, the murder of particularly of family members. It is very difficult, but we're hoping today to give you some information that you're going to find very useful, not only to understand more about murder and loss, but if you've had a murder or a loss in your family, you'll be able to take a look at some of the aspects of this and meet some wonderful people. We're going to meet Stacey Redmond, whose son Tim was killed, and we'll be talking about that. And then she has a wonderful foundation, the Tim Griffith Foundation. And then we're going to talk to Lou Cox, who is from Tacoma, Washington. His daughter Carmen was murdered, and he's going to talk to us about victim advocacy. So it's going to be a really full show.
You know, it is, and my wife and I, Denise, were just back in Newtown, Sandy Hook, about 3 weeks ago. And certainly that subject, not only of grief and loss, is so prevalent with, when, you know, events like that happen, but murder brings its own unique complications. And so both guests today, I think, are really going to shed a lot of light for whatever grief or loss you might be going through, but specifically I'm looking forward to what they're going to tell us about that type of loss, because it does have its own unique complications that go with it.
Absolutely. Heidi and I have worked with the 9/11 families, firemen families, since 9/11, and they're pretty angry and a lot going on, Alan. So we'll still, after all these years, it's a tough topic. Absolutely. Well, let's get started now and introduce our first guest, Stacey Redmond. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
It's so great to have you on. Talk to us about Tim and what happened to you and your experience.
So 8.5 years ago, Tim was killed. He was at a San Francisco Giants game with friends, and he was murdered after the game. He was stabbed. He had just turned 21 years old. He was a great kid with a big heart and great spirit.
And you're a big Giants fan.
Yeah, we were.
And a baseball family.
Yes, yes.
So that
many
was
memories there.
Yeah, a lot of your fun and a lot of things going on.
Yes.
So I knew you then, and I went through to a bit of your trial.
Yes.
That you had, and I wondered if you could talk a little bit about, you know, how it is for somebody who's had a murder.
Mm-hmm. So the person that murdered Tim was was arrested 2 weeks after his death, and our trial didn't start for another 4 years. So he was in jail. It was in San Francisco. He was in jail the entire 4 years, but changed attorneys many times, and we had many, many, many postponements, and that was really very, very hard.
Well, we'll get into talking about that more. I want to show a little tape about you and some of the fabulous work that you've been doing since Tim died.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
So we're going to see that in a minute, and just talk about the three aspects of things that you do that you're interested in with your foundation.
Yes, so the foundation focuses on helping people that are impacted by addiction, violence, or loss, and many times all three. And so we do it in three very separate ways because they're different. Different concerns.
And we're going to be talking a little bit about the retreat center that you're doing, the Meadowlark Retreat.
Yeah, Meadowlark Retreat.
So yeah, let's see that rolling now. Are we ready to see that?
So the foundation focuses on three different areas that impact people's lives. We'd like to work with people, helping them transform their lives when they've been impacted by addiction, by violence, and by loss. We opened Tim's House 2 years ago in partnership with the Service League of San Mateo County. And we operate Tim's House for 6 young men that are successfully going through a drug treatment program. In the area of violence prevention, we've most recently partnered with the Cleo Ulao Center and are supporting their transitional counselor at Sequoia High School, who works with at-risk youth that are transitioning from community schools in the county or juvenile hall back into mainstream high school. And the third area that we focus is around loss, and we started Meadowlark Retreat this year, which is a retreat for 7 to 10 mothers who have lost a child suddenly, and we do that in partnership with Cara.
It is a 3-day retreat for mothers who have had an adult child die. And there really has been nowhere that offers anything like this, where mothers can come together for an intensely sacred, safe weekend that invites them to go into the place of their grief that rarely is seen by anyone.
So what we're finding is in the three areas where we focus, addiction, violence, and loss, there is a lot of overlap. And what we'd really like to do is work with the community and work with organizations that focus in these three areas to see where there might be some synergies, where we could really take a look at people that are impacted in many cases by all three of those, and how could we work as a more unified community to put an end to violence, to really help shore people up that are impacted by addiction and by loss.
Well, Alan, I'll have to say, you know, when you hear about somebody who's had somebody murdered in their family, and then to see what they've gone on, how they've transformed it, it's pretty amazing. Stacey, it's amazing what you've been doing.
It is, Stacey. You know, one thing, when I meet a lot of families who've had a loved one die, you know, by murder, and they go through so much, just like we do in grief and loss of any type. What was your journey like to get from that place where you were new in grief to where you're able to do the work that you're doing today? What kind of a time frame was that you could tell us about that might offer somebody else hope who thinks they'll never get there?
Yeah, actually, it came pretty quickly, the work with the foundation. We formed the foundation 6 months after Tim died, and it's obviously evolved a lot, but I have some wonderful friends who helped me start the foundation and continue to be on the board and work with me now. And so I wanted Tim's memory to be attached to something positive versus his murder. So that was really driving.
How healing would you attribute, because you seem like you're getting to a place in your grief and loss where you are getting to a better place.
Have we said exactly how many years it's been?
Yeah.
8.5, yeah.
Yeah, 8.5, okay.
Yeah.
And how much of your healing would you attribute to the fact that you've had this foundation and that you're able to help other people?
Oh, a lot. I also do some one-on-one grief counseling as well, and I just find that, you know, being with other people that are struggling and trying to help is really healing.
And so moving out and helping. Well, tell us about those early days for the folks that are out there right now that have just had a murder.
So it's completely overwhelming, and in our case it was very public as well, because it was after the Giants game. Barry Bonds had hit 700 home runs, and so it was, you know, it was very public, and so that adds, I think, another dimension to your grief. And you're immediately thrown into this legal system that you don't have, I mean, 99% of the people have never had any experience with. And so that can be really overwhelming. I mean, having friends, family, advocates with you is incredibly, incredibly important, and building that relationship with the district attorney, the prosecutors.
And hard to work on your grief when you're focusing on getting justice, would you say that?
Yes,
That's common.
yes. And when, you know, so many trials are postponed for so long, I remember it was 4 years, and I remember somebody saying to me, well, then after the trial ends, you'll be able to really start grieving. And I thought, oh my God.
You know, I think this is going to get us to our next guest, because Luke Hawks is a victim's advocate, from Tacoma, Washington, and he also had his daughter Carmen die. And he's going to be talking to us and with you, and we've got a great audience here who will be able to get some questions from and deal with some of these issues here. So
you want to show his roll-in?
yeah, why don't we show Lou's roll-in, and yeah,
We'll bring
take
him
a look.
Cox, the founder of Violent Crime Victim Services. This organization was born out of the violent death of my 22-year-old daughter Carmen. Violent Crime Victim Services was created to assist co-victims of homicide to cope with the aftermath of a loved one who had their life taken violently.
I first came in contact with Violent Crime Victim Services about 2 to 3 weeks after my husband was killed. I really didn't know who they were or what to expect from them, but they came and they were really warm, friendly, and as we started talking about the services, I could relate to them more than I could my friends. My friends were great supporters. They were there for me, but they really never had a loss like that. And so they really couldn't relate to the things that I was saying. But these people could. They knew others that were in the same position. I felt warm about these people.
The challenges to reconnect from a traumatic experience can be overwhelming, but with time, hard work, counseling, aid of a support group, or turning towards one's faith, life can once again have meaning after such a devastating loss.
Now we're going to get to meet Lou, and here he comes. Hi, Lou. Oh, great to have you on the show.
Come around there, I think.
Yep.
How you doing?
Well, Lou, how great it is of you to fly in all the way from Tacoma, Washington to do this show with us today. We really appreciate it.
Well, I'm delighted to be here.
Yeah, it's really, really fantastic in the work you're doing. And talk a little bit about the loss of your daughter, Carmen.
Well, it is it's something that no human being can really describe when you get a phone call that your daughter had been murdered. And when that happened, and as time progressed, we discovered in our family that we really wouldn't get any benefits from some support systems out there. And it just really didn't exist. And we were desperate. I was desperate to talk to another father who had had a daughter or a son murdered. And subsequently from that time, then I developed Violent Crime Victim Services, because I made a promise to myself that I would help others so they didn't have to struggle like we were without finding, a guide through the maze of grief in the court system.
Now, tell me something. Should people be talking about it? Is it a good idea to talk about it if you've had a murder in the family?
Well, the notion that we have in this country is that you may be going somewhere and the Joneses are coming over and they'd had a homicide, and people say, hey, now don't bring it up because it'd be too hard on them, and it'd cause grief. And that was a position that I used to hold too, until I developed a support group where I knew that having that notion that would probably set me back in my grief, but I was willing to do it for the cause. First month we did it, didn't see really a change. The second month, I'm thinking, maybe this is benefiting me. And the third month, I knew it was benefiting me by talking about it. So I learned early on in my career is that as soon as I can get people to talk about the loss, the crime, the incident, that the better off they will be.
Well, you were telling me earlier when we were talking today that you have worked with over 900 families.
Wow.
Tell us a little bit about
that's
that.
amazing.
You must have gained some incredible insight, not only from your own journey, but certainly from working with that many families.
And you add that there may be, a minimum of 5 family members, 6 family members. It's a lot of people to work with. I have gained a lot of information and have given a lot to other people because of my own loss. Well, one of the things in terms of talking about it is a point that I really want to make in this program is that you have to find a safe place. We have provided a safe place for these families, a support group monthly, and the only people in that support group are those who have had a loved one die a violent death. and they come in and they're able to talk in a safe place, because there's not always a safe place out there for them to talk with friends that they see. They may be asking them how the case is going, what happened, things. That's not a safe place. They need to be in one like a support group, counseling, and other methods that could be available for them to have a safe place to talk.
Lou, I know you've written a book. Could you talk a little bit about your book? And
this is a book that I co-authored with Dr. Robert Bauer in Coping with Traumatic.
good friend of ours.
Yeah, he's a good friend of yours.
Yeah.
And we co-authored this book in 1999, and it's been a great tool to be able to get out in the hands of folks that really don't have a support system available to them. You know, and at Newtown in Connecticut, we just sent 240 books back there.
You gave them out
You were part of
in
distributing.
Newtown.
Yeah,
and some books
absolutely.
from our Open to Hope books also, right?
Yeah.
You know, Gloria, a question that both of you could probably touch on, but Lou will address it to you. First of all, I had a gentleman come up in one of my workshops recently whose daughter was murdered. And our discussion was on grief and processing grief. And he said, Alan, I am so stuck in my anger that I cannot get past my anger, and I don't feel I can work on my grief because I'm so deep in anger. What would you say to a gentleman like
And Stacey too, after
Yeah,
he
both of
answers
you.
that, have you got some thoughts on it? That's
Well,
a biggie.
we do get stuck in our anger, and that's a part of the grief process is anger. In our system, when we realize somebody's stuck in that anger, then we talk to them. Talk about your anger. What is it? Is it the court system? Is it the person that did the murder? Is it other family members because it stretches family? Is it the difference between male and female grief? All these things. But what my objective is to get them to talk about their anger and talk about the incident if possible.
Stacey, how about anger? Was that anything for you, or
So
have you got any thoughts?
It's interesting. I kept expecting my anger to come, and I don't feel like it really ever came. I felt good that, you know, the system was working the way it should for us, slow, but I didn't really, my grief, I feel like, was just so there, you know.
Alan, I think that's a really good point because, you know, we sometimes, I've heard people say, oh, you have to be angry, but you really don't. Not everybody's angry, and, you know, the different, the stages, idea and all that, you know, we're kind of moving in our different ways. One of the things that I've thought about with the murder, because Stacey, I went to court with you a couple of times, is wow, what a thing for, I know both of you have perpetrators in jail right now, and I don't know, you haven't had to go to a parole hearing yet.
No.
And Lou, you've been going for how many years to parole hearings?
Well, the slayer of my daughter had 17 years to life, and he could not go in front of the parole board until 15 years were served. And so subsequently from that 15 years, he's been there 4 times. And I've been there 3 times, and my 2 daughters have been there twice.
Could you talk a little bit, I've heard you talk about the fact that they're always going to be at the dinner table with you.
Well, that's true. Thanks for bringing that up. Is that you cannot change what has happened. They've set a plate at your table, and what we do in our family is that we do not put food on that table. We will not feed him. And so what we've made a choice is to be able to take what we've had and move in a direction that is positive, that we can help other people. And so we won't allow ourselves to develop a root of bitterness or hatred towards that person. It's not easy to do, it's not. But it's been beneficial to us because hate is something that is very hard to see happen.
I think both of you are just living proof, Gloria, of what you and I keep saying when we talk about this. There is hope.
Right,
And,
absolutely.
And you know, when we were in Newtown, like I said a few weeks ago, it's hard to talk about hope to people who are so new in their grief. But folks like you are just that living proof that there is hope and that things can get better.
Absolutely, and the idea that we're all sitting here and we're saying to people to lean on our hope until you find your own if you don't have hope. And we call our foundation Open to Hope because we want you to just open to the idea that there could be hope again. Well, let's
You know
take
what
some.
time it is now. It's
Yeah.
time.
All right, to do some questions
All
from
right,
our
Phil
audience.
Donahue, head out to the audience. There you go.
Okay, does somebody have a question for us here? Yeah. Okay. Do you want to start? Okay.
Stacey, how do you feel about the legal system today?
Well, I would say that I probably have as much faith in the legal system as I did before Tim died. I mean, the outcome for us was good. We had a wonderful district attorney that we worked with. So I can't say that my faith in the legal system is extremely high because I see things that are happening that really don't feel just. But, for us, it worked.
It's worked out good. Okay. Hi.
Hi,
What's your name? I probably should ask that. You can just give us your first.
Carolyn.
Hi, Carolyn.
The question that I have is, what would be one piece of advice that you would give someone that was going through a trial?
I would hope that they would have a victim advocate, a community base that can give a long-term support to them going through a trial. It means so much because in the trial, there's nobody there representing them. The judge isn't, the attorneys aren't, the jury isn't, but that victim advocate is there supporting them. They don't have to say a lot, but just be there and sit next to them and talk to them during the breaks and lunchtime. They have a means of being able to display their frustration to somebody that cares.
All right. Hi.
Hi, my name is Rhoda. Stacey, I wanted to know what was the hardest part of the trial for you?
Definitely seeing the person that had taken Tim's life, having to see him, having to listen to his attorney, listen to him. That was the most difficult thing for me.
Thank you.
Could Lou answer that one too? What was the hardest part of the trial for you?
In my daughter's case, it didn't go to trial. It was plea bargain the day it was going to trial. Wow. And so we didn't have to experience that part.
Wow. Does anybody else have another question? You want to stand up, Mike?
Hello. The trial that I anticipate that will be for my daughter's murderer will involve 2 other murders. Would you be in that trial for all 3?
Interesting.
3 cases that are all going to be tried at once?
So my desire was to be Tim's face in that courtroom, to represent Tim and to have the jury see that Tim had a loving family. He was not, just a murder victim. He had a family and people that cared about him and loved him very much. And I don't know with the fact that there's 3 different, but I probably would be there just to represent the fact that there's people that really care.
Oh, who else had one? Oh, who has one? Somebody else? No? Oh, right there. Okay. Can you give us your name?
I'm Lisa, and I was wondering if it was difficult about the publicity for you.
So it was really kind of 2 sides to it. It was difficult because we were in such grief, and having a camera and a microphone in your face at that time is difficult. But on the other hand, I think we really sort of used that attention to keep Cuevas's name out there, looking for him, and I think it really helped ultimately in his capture. So.
Wow. Well, thank you for giving those questions, and thanks for answering those for us. And I wanted to ask you both, do you have one last thing that you'd like to, one last shot that you would like to give to people out there to help them if they've had a loss? Lou, have you got one comment?
Yeah, I do. Seek out the help. A book can be fine, but you need to have that personal contact with those who have experience working in the field. They can give you hope, and they can also be able to verify to you that you're not going crazy, that you're grieving.
Great. Stacey, do you have one last?
Similar, I would say reach out to people that have been, through a similar trauma, and let people take care of you if they want to.
I like that. Let people take care of you.
Boy, we can all do that. We should do that when we're going through grief. It's important that we take care of ourselves.
Yep.
Wow, amazing.
Yep. Well, Alan, thank you for being my co-host on the show today.
I really enjoyed it. I'll tell you, it was an honor. We hope Heidi's situation gets better and she's back real soon.
Yeah. Absolutely. And we want to say to you all out there that if you've had a loss, again, lean on our hope. And about murder, we understand that this is very difficult. We've worked with families where there has been murder, and it's a really difficult situation to deal with. Talk a little bit about going to Newtown. I know you went to met with the ministers. And
Yeah, we really had, our focus was on those that were working with the families. And Lou's book we distributed to the grief counselors who are working with the families, to the hospice, to the hospital, to several churches. And so thank you for the generosity of donating those books. And we had a wonderful open house there for the community, and Open to Hope, your book was there. Dr. Heidi was there and just met one-on-one with a lot of folks working with the family. So it was very rewarding, but they've got a long way to go, just like anybody who's had that loss has a long way to go. But they are taking steps, which is all any of us do.
That's all you can do.
Exactly. And just to talk a little bit more about the high profile of these cases, it is really difficult.
High profile cases are really hard on families.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I would suggest out there, if you've had this kind of a loss, one of the things that I think is important to do things like take a news break, take care of yourself, let people take care of you. And thank you for listening to our show today. And we hope that you will take care of yourself and be more sensitive to those who have had a loss. And God bless.
This has been Grief Relief, hosted by the mother-daughter team of Dr. Gloria and Dr. Heidi Horsley. This show's been brought to you by the Open to Hope Foundation, helping people find hope after loss. Be sure to visit Dr. Gloria and Dr. Heidi at opentohope.com, where you can listen to radio programs, watch past episodes of Grief Relief, read articles, and view books. You can also join them on Twitter and Facebook and put your events on their international calendar. Thanks for watching, and remember, others have been there and made it, and you can too.